Hello there, my name is James Harrington. If Spanish football is for you, then this is the place to be. With it being the international break, I thought let's talk about something different. And today I want to talk about the top 5 fallen giants in Spanish football. Now, 2 of the clubs you've probably heard about before, but the other 3 should definitely interest you. You might be wondering, have I put Barcelona in this category? And to be honest, I felt like that would be too premature. Whilst we saw their situation laid bare last summer, they are still in La Liga and they're still competing in the Champions League. So they're not exactly out of it right now. The first club to talk about is Valencia. Now, when I conceived this idea for this video, it was a very difficult period for the club. Javi Gracia had just left, Voro came as interim, and the club had their second lowest finish in La Liga, that being 13th, since the side was promoted in 1987. Valencia are the 5th most decorated side in Spanish football, with their last trophy coming in 2018-2019, that being the Copa del Rey. Their manager at the time was Marcelino, a man who delivered successive top 4 finishes. However, his tense and fractious relationship with owner Peter Lim, the Singaporean businessman who's been in charge of Valencia since 2014, led to Marcelino's departure. The summer of 2020 was a tumultuous one for the club, with a number of big-name players leaving, the likes of Dani Parejo and Francis Coquelin, to regional rivals Villarreal. This was all in the name of cost-cutting. Marca reported at the time that they needed to slash 40% from their wage bill, going from £166 million down to £90 million. This year, it was also reported that debts at Valencia are in excess of €400 million. Last summer, there were protests outside the Mestalla, and what didn't help was like the interviews that Peter Lim and his family did with the likes of the Financial Times, which he showed his sheer disdain for the fans and lack of care of what they think of him. It really was a forgetful campaign for Valencia. A few moments of hope, such as the victory over Real Madrid, but with a squad torn apart, it really was a disastrous season for a side that had been competing in the Champions League at one point in time. 2-time finalists. This is a team that should be competing in Europe. This summer brought in a new manager, Bordalas, and it has started fairly well for him. We've seen the continued rise of Carlos Soler, the performance of Yunus Musa, and the upturn in form of the likes of Gonzalo Guedes and Maxi Gomez. However, this is merely papering over the cracks. When Peter Lim came in charge, he was seen as their salvation, but now fans desperately want rid of him. The next club to talk about is Malaga, Los Bacorrones, who currently sit 10th in the Segunda División. Now, Malaga are an example of a club that had an owner who had grand ambitions of European football, but after falling short, led to a period of steady decline and ultimately a moment of absolute crisis. In 2010, with economic problems at the club, Sheikh Abdullah Ben Nasser Al Thani took control after a €36 million takeover. Now, the Sheikh also had ambitions for wider business opportunities across the Costa del Sol region, but they didn't come to fruition for a whole number of reasons, and that would require another episode to explain that. But when he took over in his first season, it was a very mediocre campaign. But after the appointment of Manuel Pellegrini and turning the money taps on with the signings of Ruud van Nistelrooy, Jeremy Touralin and the club record signing Santi Cazorla, it led to great success for the side. And as well, on the books at the time, they had the likes of Isco, Monreal and Joaquin. This all culminated in them qualifying for the Champions League for the first time in the club's history, with a subsequent campaign them getting knocked out in the quarterfinals to Borussia Dortmund. However, to fund this success, it was found that Malaga broke financial fair play regulations, and they became the first club in history to be banned from European football due to those rules. What happened then was a period of steady decline and ultimately relegation from the top flight in 2017-2018 after 10 consecutive seasons in La Liga. Fast forward to 2020, it got worse for Malaga. Due against the backdrop of the COVID-19 pandemic, the side filed for collective dismissal of all of its playing staff in order to avoid falling into administration. They said this was an absolute last resort, and without doing so, the club would have lost their Segunda Division status and had to drop down to the regionalised third tier of football. On top of that, supposedly Al Thani even owes the club €7.3 million in loans. And whilst you have the likes of Sevilla, Real Betis and even Granada flying the flag for Andalusia, that seems like a long way off for Malaga. The next club to talk about is Racing Santander. Now, one of the 10 founding members of La Liga, a club that spent majority of their existence in the Spanish top flight. However, they find themselves in the third tier of Spanish football. The greatest moment for the side in the 21st century was in the 2008 season, where they finished 6th, qualifying for the UEFA Cup and getting all the way to the semi-finals of the Copa del Rey. Their manager at the time, Marcelino, who's now in charge of Athletic Club. The Cantabrians, though, however, in 2011 got a new owner, Ali Said, the Indian business tycoon who went through 3 different managers in the 2011-2012 season, saw Racing Santander relegated to the Segunda Division, having spent a full decade in La Liga. Even though he relinquished control of the side in 2013, a legacy of poor financial management continued. And in January 2014, with the players citing months of unpaid wages, they said they were going to go on strike. And they were going to forfeit a cup match against Real Sociedad in order to force the resignation of the board and the president. Having lost the first leg 3-1 as the start of the second leg began, the Racing players congregated around the centre circle, refusing to kick the ball. The referee, Gil Manzano, was eventually, after 1 minute, suspend the game, and they forfeited the result. And even though they were knocked out of the competition, a competition they advanced quite far in, the Racing fans understood, and they were angry with the board as well. In 2019-2020, even after a period of back and forth between the second and third tier, Racing Santander were relegated once again, having only won 5 out of 42 games. Having not secured promotion back at the first attempt, for the 2011-2022 season, they remain in the third tier of Spanish football in the newly formed Primera División. The next club we're going to talk about is Real Zaragoza, the 7th most decorated side in Spanish football. The early 2000s brought a purple patch of success for the side, winning 2 Copa del Reys and the Supercopa España in 2004. They're the most successful club from the 5th largest city in Spain. In the 2006-2007 season, they did qualify for the UEFA Cup. However, the following year, they were relegated. Winning promotion back at the first attempt, 4 more years spent in La Liga, predominantly in the bottom half of the table, they were then relegated in the 2012-2013 season. Their problems can be traced back to Agapito Iglesias, the man who took control in 2006. Running up debts in 2012-2013 season upwards of €145 million, with players not being paid, a number of stars departing the club, and players brought in under the now illegal practice of third-party ownership, the ship well and truly sunk. Their relegation in the 2012-2013 season marked their 3rd relegation of the 21st century, and they seem to be going in a backwards cycle. Since then, though, the club have not got back to the top flight, and after 8 difficult years, eventually the majority stake was sold to an organisation known as the Fundación Zaragoza 2032 by some Real Zaragoza loving business people. Whilst the circus is slowly being solved off the pitch, problems remain, coming close to promotion but ultimately failing. The final team to talk about in this video is Deportivo La Coruna, the one-time Champions League competitors, a side that won La Liga in the year 2000, only one of 5 teams to win that crown in the past 30 years. Whilst 3 of the 4 teams remain in the Spanish top flight, Deportivo La Coruna currently sit in the 3rd tier of Spanish football. After having only one president for 25 years, since 2014, they've had 4 different presidents. Their debt was spiralling out of control, and eventually Galician bank Abanca assumed control of the club with an 80% majority stake. Let's rewind a bit and look at the timeline of decline. In 2007, a number of big name stars had to leave the club, those responsible for that period known as Super Depor. And without Champions League football, the club were hemorrhaging millions of pounds. What didn't help was that the president, Lendoiro, had enshrined in the constitution his €400,000 salary. This led to an insolvency case worth €160 million of debt, the largest ever in Spanish football. The administrator said they would only keep Deportivo in existence if their president resigned, and he so did on Christmas Eve 2013. But in 2017-2018 season, after a 4-2 defeat to Barcelona, the club were relegated from the top flight and went down to the Segunda Division. Now, in their first season back in the Segunda Division, they did finish 6th, and they got a promotion playoff spot, but they eventually lost to Mallorca. But in the 2019-2020 season, they were contentiously relegated from the second tier down to the third tier. What happened was Fuenlabrada, the team they were due to play in their final day, the team they were fighting against for their survival, had a number of positive tests of COVID-19 for their players, meaning the batch was abandoned. For Deportivo La Coruna, though, what made matters worse was that all the other fixtures that weekend went ahead as planned, meaning that Deportivo La Coruna were relegated. They did file a legal case against Fuenlabrada saying that they should be relegated on public health grounds, but to no avail. This was the first time that they had fallen out of the top 2 divisions of Spanish football for 39 years. Their first season in the third tier, they could not get promotion back, but in the now called Primera División for the 2021-22 season, it's not all looking bad. Yes, they're playing against teams that are potentially semi-professional, but they are able to attract fans of 20,000 season ticket holders. That is better attendance than some top-flight Spanish teams. Well, that's it for this episode on Top 5 Fallen Giants in Spanish football. If you did enjoy the video, hit that subscribe button, the notification bell, and give the video a thumbs up. It's all greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.